Thank you everyone for coming and welcome to FAYE's College Advice Panel. For those of you that don't know, FAYE is a local student-led nonprofit here in Fremont, California. So this is part one of our two-parter college advice panel series. In this section, we're going to be having 3 college admissions officers talk about the college perspective of the advice panel. So in our next part, which is next week, we're going to be having our some alumni speak from some top colleges, including UC Berkeley, UCLA, and Stanford. So be on the lookout for that on Facebook and Instagram and other social media sites. We'll be posting signups for that very soon. Also, another piece of information, FAYE is opening up main branch positions. We only open these up once in the entire year, so make sure to sign up. The link, I'm just going to drop it here in the chat. This is due tomorrow at noon, so make sure to sign up. And then we will get started with our very first speaker.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jovez. I'm the Diversity Partnerships Coordinator with the University of California, Santa Cruz. And thank you so much for inviting me here today to talk a little bit about my campus and just some of the things that helped me get through college to begin with. Next slide, please. So I am a recent graduate of California State University, Northridge, where I majored in sociology and civic and community engagement. I graduated May of 2019, and I've been with UC Santa Cruz since July of 2019. So I immediately started working as soon as I graduated. Fun fact, I did apply for this job literally the day after graduation. And so, we really wanted to hit the ground running, and here we are. Here's the contact information for me if you wanted to get in contact later on, and I'll put it in the chat as well after I'm done speaking. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are just some of the things to know about UC Santa Cruz. So y'all are from the Fremont area, so it's in the Bay Area. It is a 2,000-acre campus, and it's beautiful. And the pictures that I have here are essentially where Santa Cruz is. We're in the middle of the redwood forest, but we have easy access to the beach and other parts of the coast. So you kind of get the best of both worlds if you're a nature type person. We are pretty close to San Francisco, so we're about an hour and a half drive from San Francisco, as well as San Jose. So we are really close to San Jose and Silicon Valley. So we're the closest UC to Silicon Valley. And I share that because students really need to, think about what opportunities are going to be available for me with whatever campus I decide to go to. And with UC Santa Cruz, a lot of our students actually get the opportunity to intern in Silicon Valley and do research and network with people that work in the field of technology in Silicon Valley. So if that's something that you are interested in doing while you're an undergraduate student, Santa Cruz might be a great campus for you. We offer over 70 majors and 39 minors. So our most popular majors include computer science, computer engineering, marine biology, business management, economics, psychology, and sociology. And we launch new minors and majors every single year. So this year, one of the majors that we launched is democracy, education, and justice. And a new minor that we launched in the fall includes our Black Studies minor. So those are things that we're very excited about, and definitely with whatever college you're looking for or looking into, see what majors are brand new and see if those majors may be something you're interested in, because sometimes students will discount schools because, oh, they don't have this major. But we encourage students to see what's close. If you really like this campus, if you visited the campus and you see yourself going to school there, but they may not have the exact major you're looking for, you should see what's close, because that's something that can really open up doors for you to either be, one of the first people in this major to graduate with this degree, or, having more research and faculty relationships develop because you are one of the first people to be in this major. So don't discount a campus necessarily because they don't have the exact program you're looking for, but definitely keep your options open. We're a campus that operates on the residential college system. So this ties into our existence as a major research university, as one of the 9 University of California campuses. But what makes us different is that we have the heart of a liberal arts college. So we are the second smallest UC. And what that means is we have less than 20,000 students on our campus, and it is solely focused in undergraduate education. We have less than 2,000 graduate students on our campus. So a lot of the way our campus was designed was made to be different compared to our sister campuses. In fact, the former chancellor of Berkeley founded our campus and was intentionally saying, I don't want to make another Berkeley. I don't want to make another LA. So that's something that's really unique about Santa Cruz. So our residential college system, they are our residential colleges because students live where they learn. So when our students are admitted and they select their housing, they select which college they want to be affiliated with based on the theme of that college. So some of our themes include diversity and social justice. They include global and international perspectives. So you get to really interact with people from across all disciplines in your residential college system. So that's how our campus is pretty much set up. And this point here, we are a financially generous campus. So around 80% of our students receive some sort of financial aid. And in the last year, last school year, we awarded at least $320 million in financial aid to our students. So that looks like grants, that looks like scholarships, that looks like work study. Yes, that looks like loans, but at the end of the day, your education is an investment that your return on investment is only going to be higher. So, we can have that conversation about what that looks like, what an ROI is. But in the meantime, let's go on to the next slide, and I'll give you just some of my own personal tips with college. And then we'll talk about tips for admissions. Oh, well, actually, we'll talk about admissions. So here's just some tips for UC admissions. And these are the tips that I always recommend to students. And I have a brother who is applying to UC this fall. He is a senior. And these are all of the things that I've told him in his application process. So 1, get connected and stay connected with admissions representatives. We've been doing so many virtual college fairs. We've been giving out our emails all over the internet. And frankly, I don't get enough emails from students asking me, hey, can I have a one-on-one session and ask you questions about Santa Cruz? Do you mind looking over my PIQs? I don't get enough of those, and I highly recommend that you do that because, at least from my perspective, I am here to help students. I'm here to help students get to wherever it is they want to go, even if it isn't UC Santa Cruz. Something that is great about being part of the University of California system is that some of the things that aren't, some of the major things when it comes to the application are broad across every single campus. So there are some instances where the application may require like a supplemental application depending on the campus, depending on the major. But in terms of just general tips and tricks, even though I'm the one giving it to you from UC Santa Cruz, this is something you'll hear from Berkeley. This is something you'll hear from LA. So that's 1, get connected and stay connected with admissions representatives. 2, put your best and most authentic foot forward. So something that we see in our applications is that students are really trying to cater to what they think we want to read. When at the end of the day, what we want to know is about you. We want to know about how you think. We want to know about what your priorities are. We want to know about the things that inspire you. And I'm just reading your application and trying to see like, okay, is this student going to do well at UC Santa Cruz? At the end of the day, that is the ultimate goal, making sure that you're doing well on our campus and that you have the ability to succeed, because the worst thing we can do is admit somebody who we don't think they're going to succeed. So success looks like so many things, and we really want to see what that looks like for you. So put your best and most authentic foot forward. Don't try to cater your application to what you think we want, because what you think we want isn't going to be what's going to be on the application. Next, don't be afraid to ask for something. So like I mentioned, I don't get enough students asking me to read their personal insight questions and provide feedback. I know that's something that people will pay for. I will do it for free. Plenty of other admissions representatives will do it for free. And we're the ones who are actually reading your applications. I know there are so many services out there of people who have read for UC in the past, and students who have gotten into UC offering their services to read PIQs, provide feedback, but at the end of the day, they're not the ones who are evaluating your application, and they're charging you sometimes. I won't, I can't, but that's just something to keep in mind. This one is a very small thing, but personal and professional emails are a major key. So you want to have different emails for your college apps, for your FAFSA. And I say this because sometimes, so this is something we've heard from our financial aid office, students miss out on so many scholarships because their inboxes mark it as spam. So make sure you have a separate email that is solely for educational purposes so that your email algorithm understands that when somebody is emailing you about free money, it doesn't go to spam. So that's something I recommend. Stay ahead of the deadline. So keep a Google Calendar. Make sure you're submitting things well before the actual due date. There isn't there's no tangible benefit to submitting your UC app before the November 30th deadline. However, if there is a technical difficulty that happens at 11:45 p.m. on November 30th and you can't submit your application, we can't do anything about it. So submit your application as early as possible so that you don't run into any technical difficulties. And if something does come up, you can make arrangements ahead of time. You can reach out to us. We can try to figure out a solution for you to submit it before the 11:30 or November 30 deadline. So definitely stay ahead of your deadlines. Work on your application in chunks. So my brother has been working on his application since September, and he has been taking it chunk by chunk and making sure he's getting all the accurate information. And now, it's the middle of November and he's solely focusing on his PIQs. And that's something I highly recommend because doing everything all at once can be so intimidating. And it can be really time consuming, and you're still a student in a pandemic. So doing things by chunks is something I also recommend. Also, utilize online resources and tools. We are on Zoom University across the entire world. Things are being recorded. Things are so accessible online, and make sure you just utilize all of the opportunities to learn more about a campus, to connect with students, to build those relationships. And next slide, please. So here are from my personal experience, my tips and tricks. And obviously this can be applied to the previous slide, but first things first, research. Figure out what the campus has to offer you before you make the decision. So going to visit when it's safe is something that I recommend. I went to California State University, Northridge, and I visited that campus at least 3 times before I made my decision. I also did a lot of research on the faculty I would be studying under, their research. I looked at all of their Rate My Professors so that I can see, who are going to be my instructors, who will I have to deal with, things like that. So do your research, figure out what resources are available to you, look at all of these social media pages so you have an idea of what kind of events go on campus. And it's so time consuming, but honestly, it is so worth it. By the time I got to Cal State Northridge, I got a student job within a month of getting there. And I'm a transfer student, so I was already really acclimated to the campus and I knew where I wanted to try and get a student job at. And that was history. I got so much great experience in my 2 years there. And that was all because I did so much legwork at the beginning. Next, keep your options open. You want to be graceful and patient with yourself, and don't be afraid to explore. I went to community college, and that's something that a lot of students are grappling with is, oh, community college, I don't know about that one. I'm a competitive student. I'm a great student, but maybe personally you're not feeling ready to go to university just quite yet. That's okay. Keep your options open. Don't let anybody tell you different because you're the only one who knows what's best for you. And yes, your parents love you and they care about you and they want to see you succeed, but it should never be at the expense of your own mental health and your own feelings of yourself. Last, ask for help. It's okay to struggle and it's okay to ask for help. I highly recommend asking for help because getting so much, I got so much knowledge asking my mentors around me, tell me about student affairs. What is it like? Who am I going to have to deal with? And that's something that I highly recommend is just ask for help. Don't feel some type of way about it because there's nothing wrong with it. You're only trying to do better for yourself. So ask for help. Ask me to read your PIQs. I'm not going to think any type of way except, wow, this student is advocating for themselves. So that's all of the tips that I have for you. And I am happy to hand it off now to Matthew.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dawn. I really just want to echo a lot of what Dawn said. We're all here to help you. This is really, I would say most of us find our way. Once again, let me just also introduce myself. Where are my manners? My name is Matthew Galli. I'm one of the assistant directors with Boston University, more specifically the Northern California representative. And if we can flip to the next one, a lot of us find our way into college admissions because we want to just help you go through that same process that we all went through, right? Many of us come from so many different styles and types of backgrounds and such. I'm first generation, and when I went through the college search, I only visited one college. I only really knew about one college. I applied to one college. I got into one college, and I went to one college. The fact that you're here today and you're starting your college search before, a week before you send in your application, you're miles ahead of myself. So that's awesome. First off, just kudos in that regard. And then kudos to the fact that you're doing this in a global pandemic entirely online. That is a huge, we have so much respect for that. And we want to just make sure that we are doing our part to assist you with all of that. And again, we're not here to, be these mean people who are just gatekeepers, who are just trying to analyze every word of your writing samples and look at all these pieces in a very, negative and mean way. Again, we're all just humans. We're all, found ourselves who gone through that college process the same as you. So anytime that we can be of assistance to you, we want to, right? Well, that's exactly what Dawn said. That's exactly what all of us will say is anytime we can help you through this college process in any regard, we are happy to. So that's why all of our contact information are, posted everywhere on our websites. And that's what you'll find for most institutions, right? We want you to reach out anytime that you have those questions. So I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes on, of course, BU, but then I really want to turn it over to talking more about just as you go through that college search. So Boston University, of course, we're located pretty far away, right? We're in the city of Boston. I'm in Massachusetts currently. It's pretty cold outside, probably about 45 degrees, a nice little wind chill. Have all 4 seasons here in Boston. So we're getting into that winter time of year with snow and everything. But BU is really a unique campus in that we are both an urban institution located in the city of Boston, but by being just outside of the downtown part of the city, we're still a fully residential and full kind of traditional college campus. BU is home to about 16,000 undergraduate students, and I'm actually going to post a couple of things into the chat real quick. The first is just an informational booklet. The second is a map that helps really detail the campus itself. By being just outside of the downtown part of Boston, and it allows for our 16,000 undergraduate students to have kind of the best of both worlds of having the resources of a major city like Boston, but having that sense of community. Our students are coming from truly all across the world. Of course, all 50 states. California is the 3rd most represented state on campus at BU, partially because California is just so big. But again, you're seeing that draw truly from all around the world. A quarter of our students come from an international background from over 120 countries around the globe. So when you come to a school like BU and you're looking at some of these schools that you're seeing here today, you're going to interact with people who are very different from you. And that's a huge bonus when you go to college. Being able to, of course, learn within the classroom space is essential, right? That's why colleges exist at the end of the day. But university experience is so much more than that. It's about being able to learn from your peers, being able to learn from their backgrounds, their upbringings, their experiences. And that's what we want our undergraduate students to do. You know, we celebrate so many different walks of life, but most importantly, what we celebrate is diversity of thought, making sure that those students can interact with each other. And one of the ways we do that, of course, is encouraging students to be able to explore our 300 programs of study. Similar to what Don was mentioning, BU is founded on a liberal arts education. If you're not as familiar with the term liberal arts, that can look differently, certainly at at many different schools, but the essential idea behind it is that you're not just focusing in on your major, right? You're not, if you're going to a school for engineering, you're not just taking math, science, engineering classes. You're still going to take classes in the humanities and Englishes, in the languages, in social sciences. We want our students to be well-rounded. And the reason that many institutions utilize a liberal arts education is because you're not going to just be a part of your next job, right? When you go to the working world, it's not like you exist in a silo. We want our students to be able to be contributing members to society. We want our students to be able to be global citizens. We want our graduates to be able to contribute in a number of different ways. And B, we want you to be able to explore. It's something like 50% of students nationwide, not just at BU, but across the entire nation, will change their major at least once, if not multiple times. So it's really important for you to be able to go across those different disciplines, to be able to explore based on your passions, your interest areas. And for the most part, colleges have a little bit more to offer than any high school across the US. We have more academic programs. We have classes that you've never heard of, areas of study. If you know what anthropology means, you are way ahead of what I knew in high school. Good for you. You're probably way ahead of what I knew during college, to be honest. So if you know about all of these programs currently, and you know exactly what you want to do, that's awesome. That's one of the biggest pieces you want to be able to choose your college for. But you also want to be able to have flexibility in your choices. So being able to explore, being able to switch your major, and something I'll talk about in a couple of minutes as well is you want to be able to possibly have multiple areas of study, right? To be able to go interdisciplinary. Something that Dawn was mentioning was that, don't just discount a school because it doesn't have that specific terminology of the major that you're looking for. Unless you're looking to go to a very specific type of work or a very specific graduate programs, it's like 75 to 90% of the careers and programs in this country, it doesn't actually matter the name of your major, right? It matters more so the classes that you take and the experiences you have at the undergraduate level. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Just to backtrack a little bit more about BU, our students, over half of our students will actually have a second form of study. So having not just their major, but either a second major, having minors, having accelerated programs. We have programs that are called 4+1 programs. The idea behind it is that in 5 total years, you can earn your bachelor's and your master's. So that's where that 4+1 terminology comes from. So again, just being able to really kind of customize your time at BU. Just shy of half of our students will study abroad at least once during their time at BU. So really, again, kind of hammering that idea of having that global education during your experiences at BU. We are a tier 1 research institution, which is just a fancy term for there's a lot of money and resources dedicated to research, and our undergraduates will certainly play a large role in that. One of our programs, our Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program, or UROP for short. That's a program where students can, and again, it's the undergraduate program, they can come up with their own research proposals and projects, what they want to study, how they want to study it, what types of resources, spaces, stipends they may need. And UROP funds undergraduates to the tune of over $1 million annually. So making sure that our students, again, are really involved in that research enterprise. And then, of course, professional experiences. Just as I mentioned, we're only about a mile or two from downtown Boston. About 90% of our students will have at least one internship prior to graduating. So making sure that, of course, you're well-rounded during your time at BU, but that you are set up to be successful when you take that next step, whether it be grad school, jumping right into the working world. We want our students to be successful, and 96% of our students are either employed in grad school or in service within 6 months of graduation. So making sure that, again, you have the opportunity to do exactly that. Also staying involved on campus, we have over 450 clubs and organizations. Just to give you a quick sampling of some of those, that includes 40 cultural organizations, 20 plus varsity Division I sports, as well as over 40 club sports and intramurals. You know, a cappella groups, bands, ensembles, orchestras, a cappella, words, tons of community service opportunities, just so many ways to be involved both on campus and of course taking advantage of the city of Boston. The T runs directly through our campus. You can kind of see it on that map that I shared. It runs, it's that brown line, it's the train tracks. The T is like a similar but better version of the BART. Californians agree with me, so I feel okay saying that. It allows you to, again, get into downtown Boston within 5 to 10 minutes. So it's very accessible, which of course is great for those professional opportunities, but also just great to be a college student in the city of Boston. If I can have you flip, that'd be awesome. You know, large part of why all of us share those in and outs of what our colleges are like, especially in this virtual world, is that we are trying to help you with your college search in what, you know, we kind of an industry term called college fit. The idea that, you know, there isn't just one school that might be the perfect solution for you, right? That perfect next step. There are so many factors that go into different colleges and what they offer to their undergraduate students. And the most important piece is that your fit and what you're looking for in a college is entirely unique to you. You know, don't just go to a college because it appears on some ranking or they, you know, have that specific major that you're looking for, or because, you know, this is, don't tell your parents I said this, but if your parents say it's the best school for you, it may not be. So that's where you, of course, you want to do your own homework. You know, there are so many pieces that, again, go into that idea of a college fit. Thinking about academics, you know, obviously, again, you want to look through their majors and see what types of courses that they have. And again, paying attention more than just if it has that specific name. But you also want to explore if they have flexibility. Can you switch your major? Can you add on minors? Can you do dual degree or double major programs? Are they a liberal arts, you know, education? Do they have interdisciplinary options? Do they have accelerated programs? Do they have pre-professional advising if you're thinking, you know, med school, law school, or those other programs after graduating, right? You want to be supported whichever way your academics are going to take you, whether or not you have something in mind of what you want to study. Location, you know, location is going to be more than just urban versus suburban versus rural, right? You have city schools, but then some city schools are so integrated in the city that when you leave your dormitory, you have to walk past 5 big bang buildings to get to your classroom. I'm not saying that that's a good or bad fit, right? That's entirely up to you. That's something for you to decide if you want to be so immersed into the city or if you want to have a urban institution, but still maintain kind of a college feel, right? Or if you want to be outside of the city, if you want to be accessible to the city, you know, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, that closest major city that there is, or if you want to be just outside of it. Again, it's really up to you as to what's going to be a good fit for you. And then of course, on top of that, housing. You know, does that college offer housing? Do they guarantee housing? Do they require housing for their first year students? What type of housing do they offer? Is it, you know, just traditional dorms? Do you have high-rising apartments like BU does, Little Subtle Club? Just making sure that they, again, are catering to what you want to get out of your college. And then factors like how close it is to home, right? Do you want to be a 30-minute drive to home, or do you want to fly as far away as possible so that you can explore other parts of the world? It's entirely up to you. Again, neither one is correct. It's more about what's going to be that best fit for you. I'm not going to go through each of these factors individually, but some of the pieces, again, that you want to keep in mind is experiential learning opportunities, such as study abroad, research, internships, financial assistance. You know, when you look at a college and you look at their total cost of attendance, it is an ugly number for 99% of colleges, right? It is a super high number that is more than any of us have ever seen. I don't know, I'm speaking for myself here, that I've ever seen in our bank accounts. It's more about what you're going to pay at the end of the day and how much that school is going to support you through both merit and need-based scholarships, work study programs, grants, right? Most colleges have what's called the net price calculator or some variation thereof, where it actually gives you an idea as to what you would actually pay as a student at that school. So don't just focus on that, what we call sticker price. Also make sure that you are using those tools, using those calculators to gain an idea as to what you may actually pay. And then you never actually know what your financial aid package is going to be until after you apply and after you're admitted to those schools, right? So again, don't necessarily count out a school just because of that ugly sticker price. Looking at things like diversity, right? Looking at everything from, of course, traditional metrics of diversity like race and ethnicity, but geographic, socioeconomic, perspectives, diversity of thought that I mentioned before. You want to be able to learn from folks who are very different from you, who have different walks of life, because that's one of the biggest pieces, again, to a college experience is being able to just spend time with your roommates, with people in your classroom, and be able to discuss with them about their backgrounds, about their upbringings, about, what was normal wherever they come from, right? There are so many similarities in any city across the US, but of course there's going to be tons of differences as well. And you want to be able to engage and converse with those differences on top of that. And then, of course, ways to be involved on campus. That's everything from athletics to, of course, clubs and organizations. Most institutions, you can start your own club. So don't, feel like if you don't see a club on a list, on a website that, it won't exist. Just making sure that you are supported in those ways to be involved, again, on campus, off campus, and everything in between. If we can flip. Awesome. So kind of on the flip side, and speaking a little bit to what Dawn was mentioning as well, colleges, when we are looking at the admission and application process, again, we are institutions for higher education, but we're building communities, right? We're building entire classes of students. We're not just focusing on any one piece, and no one piece is ever going to discount a student, right? If I were to try to make this as simple as possible, think of college admissions like a scale that you're trying to tip over in your favor. If you look at that college's averages for things like GPA, test scores, rank, whatever it may be, and you look at what they value in their application review, everything from extracurricular involvement to writing samples, blah, 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 all those different pieces. The heavier you are in some of those areas, it really allows for you to maybe be a little bit lighter in others, right? So, there's that, if you're average kind of in everything, it's kind of a balanced scale, but as soon as you have a little bit more involvement, that starts to tip that scale in your favor, right? When you have a little bit more stronger academics, when you're taking rigorous courses, right? So all of those different pieces really come into play when we're reviewing applications. Most colleges are going to use what's called a holistic approach, which is a fancy term for looking at all of the different pieces that are part of the application, and a contextual approach, understanding that there are differences in your own background experiences, there are differences in education styles, right? Some schools offer everything from college preparatory to honors to advanced placement to international baccalaureate. But we also recognize that there are many more educational opportunities outside of that. Most schools are going to be looking at what you are all familiar with the A through G requirements. So looking at everything from social sciences, laboratory sciences, math, English, world languages, and kind of classes outside of those areas as well. So we like to see that students are well-rounded in each of those pieces because, again, we want students to come into our college campuses, to our schools, and be contributing in a number of ways, right? We don't want you to just go to class, go back to your room, do your homework, and then go to bed and rinse and repeat. We want you to be involved on campus. We want you to join clubs and organizations, start clubs and organizations. We want you to join leadership efforts. We want you to donate your time in community service, right? So all of those pieces are part of what we talk about when we talk about our schools, because they're pieces that we want you to be involved with. And that, again, goes back to what Dawn was mentioning. Don't cater to what you think we want to hear, right? If I can make a cheesy joke, we want you to be you. We want you to be your authentic and organic self. We want you to, if we're not expecting every writing sample to be the next Shakespeare, we want you to use your own flavor, right? If you're funny, be funny. If you're serious, be serious. Very much just want to gain a sense as to what you're like, because at all of our colleges, there are no prototypes to students, right? It's not just like there's cookie cutter people all around our campus. that would be very boring. We want students to come and bring different experiences and different activities and different ways of going about their lives. And that's certainly what we value and look for in components of the applications. Just one last piece is, again, and this is something I started with, is we understand that this is one of the strangest, if not the most difficult college searches that has ever been. So let us help you, right? Let us understand what you're going through. That's part of that context as well. The applications this year, and I think for the next few years at least, are actually going to have a COVID-19 essay as part of the application. It's an optional essay. You don't need to include any information, but we understand that COVID-19 has affected everyone in different ways, right? We're all in the same sea, but we're all in the same storm, but we all have different boats. So it's affected us differently. It's, maybe, for some folks, unfortunately, they may have lost loved ones. They may have affected employment statuses. These are pieces that we understand. Again, we're human on our side. We just want to understand that contextual piece. And that can go further than just COVID, right? That includes everything from wildfires, but even more personal circumstances like concussions. That includes, family situations, all these kind of personal factors that come into play. Just let us know. Just help us understand more about your background and your experiences when you're presenting your applications, because again, we're human on our sides. We just want to be able to work with you and look at it from that point of view. That's a lot of what I have to say. Certainly looking forward to answering some of your questions afterwards, but I will yield back my time. Thank you, everyone.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Dave Kobzina, and I am the Assistant Director for Transfer Recruitment at Portland State University. So before I get started, you are going to realize that we are going to be very different than both Boston University and UC Santa Cruz. Not in a good way, not in a bad way, just a different way, especially when we look at the admissions process, things of that nature here. So a little bit of background on myself before I get started. I've worked here at Portland State for 15 years, all in the Office of Admissions in various roles. And now, like I said, I oversee our transfer recruitment. I've lived in Oregon for 27 years, but I was born and raised in Walnut Creek. So I know Fremont very well. I know the Bay Area very well. I am also our admissions counselor that works with students in the Bay. So if you have any questions after today, I am certainly a good point of contact. Now, one thing that I believe it was Dawn who mentioned earlier, talking about visiting the different campuses, I know from my experience, I looked at 3 schools when I was a senior in high school, and I was a journalism major during my undergraduate time. I looked at San Francisco State, and I realized during my first visit, they had great faculty, great facilities, but it felt a little bit too close to home for me. I then went to visit the University of Oregon in mid-November. It was cold, it was rainy. I absolutely loved it. I was up there for a preview day event, stayed overnight in one of the residence halls, and I absolutely fell in love with it. But then I said, I've got to take a look at another school to just make sure what I'm going to be happy with. And I went to the University of Arizona in Tucson in mid to late February. I can't remember. It's been a long time. But it was 80 degrees, again, wonderful programs, all of that. Enjoyed my time down there. But I was like, it's 80 degrees in February. It's too hot for me. So I ended up attending the University of Oregon, and that was in 1993. So I'm old, and I've lived in the state ever since. So again, we'll talk more about the college fit a little bit later, but again, for myself, it was doing those 3 visits and really to decide where I was going to be happiest with. I know I was never going to have the grades to get into a UC. My mom worked at Cal Berkeley for 35 years. So, she encouraged me to apply, but I told her, I'll pass. So that was just my take on it here. you know, why I'm working here at Portland State, why I work in higher education, is that I love working with students from all backgrounds, all walks of life, because they all share the same commitment to want to improve on their own lives through education. My prior work experience was in TV news production, and I had done that for a number of years, but I did not find the same sense of joy at the end of the day. I didn't feel like I was really helping anyone on an individual level. And so when I went to Portland State, I first completed my master's degree here. And again, it really kind of I said to myself, yes, this is what I'm destined to do. And again, 15 years later, here I am at. So if we can go on to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about Portland State itself. So we are an urban institution, you know, first and foremost. If you leave this presentation today knowing one thing about PSU, is that we are right in downtown. So I would say we're similar to BU in that we're an urban school, but a little bit closer in. We like to say that we're 8 blocks from Pioneer Square, which is what's considered Portland's living room. That's like saying we're 8 blocks from Union Square in San Francisco. So there is a university district. You have, you know, a lot of the clubs, you have the sports, they have the housing, all of that, but we don't have any defined boundaries. When you're on campus, you can tell, but you may walk a block or two in a given direction and not be on the campus and don't even know it. So again, we take advantage of what the city of Portland has to offer. We are the second largest university here in the state, with just over 26,000 students altogether, and that includes 21,000 undergraduates. We are the most diverse four-year institution here in Oregon. Just under half of our student body identifies as coming from a racially or ethnically diverse background. More than a third of our students identify as first generation. When we describe the diversity here in Portland and at Portland State, I always want to be very clear and just transparent. It is a diverse city. It is a diverse campus. When you look at diversity here, if you look at it from the racial and ethnic perspective, I've had students from California, from other parts of the country, and they will say, Dave, and I'm editing how they say it here, it is not the most diverse city in the country that I've ever seen. We understand that. We live in Oregon. It doesn't make it a good or a bad place to live. It's just, that's the nature of living here in Oregon. If you go to other parts of the state, much less diverse than what we represent here. It is also one of the most progressive cities in the country. You know, we have you know, been very, very focused on climate change, on you know, civil rights for folks, social justice, all of that. You may have, you know, heard or seen about the protests over the summer. One thing that I think has scared some folks, and especially for their parents, is that, okay, you know, is that impacting us here at Portland State? The simple answer is no, because where a lot of those activities have taken place are probably about 10 blocks away. So on the main heart of campus, you're not hearing anything that has been going on with those protests. So we always want to be clear about that. Now, our campus is not very big. It's only about 50 acres. So it's very easy to get from one end to the other, you know, within just a matter of minutes. We are about 6 blocks from the waterfront. So if you want to go down there, you know, easy to get to. Great public transportation. Matthew talked about the T in Boston. We have 2 forms of light rail here, and I like to compare them to the Bay Area. So we have the streetcar, which runs throughout the city. So it's like Muni in San Francisco. You also have MAX, which goes out to the suburbs and the airport. So it's like BART. You know, students are welcome to bring a car here. I don't recommend it because it's expensive to bring one. So leave it at home, use the public transportation if you can. We have a lot of high need students. So you can see the number or percentage of students who are receiving financial aid. You know, we are an access institution. And I'll talk more about that. I realize, actually, I guess I'll go into that right now. From an admissions standpoint, we require a 3.0 GPA. So while some say, okay, that's not very hard to achieve, We also believe that everyone deserves the right to higher education. So we admit a lot of students who are first in class, who have a 4.0 GPA or above if they have a weighted GPA. We have students that we admit with a 2.7 or a 2.8 GPA. At the end of the day, when you enroll at Portland State or you enroll at any other college, folks are not looking at what your high school grades were. They want to know what you do when you get to your particular institution. So that is all we are concerned about. We want to ensure that, yes, do we believe that you will be academically successful when you get to Portland State? That is how we make our determination. If we do, we are going to give you that opportunity to succeed here at Portland State. Now, as you can see, we have just over 200 academic programs that can be selected from here. Some of our bigger majors are going to be in business and engineering, first and foremost, along with the health sciences, psychology, graphic design. We're the only public school here in Oregon to offer both a bachelor's and a master's degree in social work. We do not have any impacted programs, so certainly going out of state, it makes it easy to be able to graduate within 4 years. While we do not require that students declare a major, we do mandate that they have an advising pathway. And why this is important is that many students who come to us and say, I think I want to do something in the arts, but I'm not exactly sure what. Perfectly fine. You would choose the design, creativity, and performance pathway. So what it means is that you have an assigned academic advisor from day one. You're never speaking with a general academic advisor. And this individual, which is part of a larger team, they will help you select the right major if that's necessary. They also help you with your course planning, career planning. So they are with you from day one all the way up to the point of graduation. Now, the only time that students will need to switch advising pathways and switch advisors is if they are switching the pathways. So maybe you're going over to our engineering, math, and physics, or you're going to our society and identity pathway. So different tracks that you can take here. I also like to stress that we are a WUI institution. We are part of WUI, like I said, which is the Western Undergraduate Exchange, where students pay 150% of our in-state tuition. So normally for California residents, tuition and fees are about $30,000 per year. With WUI, it is just over $14,000 per year. So why do I bring this up? Because for many families, they think that going out of state means it has to be more expensive. It is not necessarily the case. And here at PSU, with that $14,000 a year for tuition and fees, you are going to be on par with most of the Cal States and the UCs. So that is something to keep in mind here. You will see that we have a good student to faculty ratio. Excuse me. I would also say that it's more of a non-traditional student body. 60% of our undergraduates are transfers. So if you are thinking about beginning at a community college, and both Don and Matthew talked about this, is that there is nothing wrong with doing so. And again, in a lot of ways, it's a very good idea, because for students who may say, again, I don't know exactly what I want to study, great. You go to community college for a year or two. You don't have to go for an associate's degree. Get some of those initial classes done. We will help to make sure apply towards your major, and they will apply to your overall degree requirements. So it doesn't mean that it's not an extension of high school. And that is something I've heard from students. They say, well, I don't want to go to community college because it is like high school. It's not, because at the end of the day, you are paying for your education at this point. So what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. And if it means staying closer to home during the pandemic, that's a great option there. And then come in as a transfer student. The average age of our undergraduate is 26. So it's not traditional where everybody's coming in at 18 and they're graduating when they're 22 or 23. We have students, the average age of our first year students is 18, but you have students in their 20s, 30s, 40s. We have students in their 60s and 70s. So, but again, those students are bringing all sorts of life experiences to the table. So because many of our classes are discussion based, we learn from our instructors, but we also learn from one another, which to me is very essential. We also have the only urban focused honors college in the country. We really use it for a lot of the city for a lot of projects. Students, during their senior year, they'll complete a thesis. So of course it's, a good research paper that they're going to do. So again, through different, I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but again, we, like I talked about, using the city as our classroom. Honors does that, I think, a little bit more so. In order to graduate, my last point on here is that everybody in order to graduate is required to do an internship or a community-based project. Many will do both. We want you to get that hands-on learning because we know having that piece of paper is important. But what else are you doing? You have to have that experiential learning to give yourself a better chance for a good degree or for a good job post-graduation. Here in Portland, we are known as the Silicon Forest. It's a corny play on words in the Silicon Valley. I get that, but it is very high tech up here. Intel is the state's largest private employer, with more than 10,000 people working there right outside the city. 1,000 of those employees approximately are PSU alums. Some other notable companies here in the area: Nike has its world headquarters in Beaverton. Adidas has its North American headquarters in North Portland. So again, if you are looking to work for a big industry, you will find the opportunities here at Portland State. 70% of our alums actually still reside in Oregon. So again, while many of our students are from Portland and from the state already, the folks that do come here from out of state oftentimes will stay because they love the community in which they are living. So if you move on to the next slide, you will notice that my slides here are not very fancy, and I'm just not a tech person, so I own that one. Some of the tips and tricks, excuse me. Before I get into these parts, I want to acknowledge that while many universities do require or have more of a holistic review to the admissions process, we do not up front. And we're not the only school that's going to be like that. So for us, we require that you have a 3.0 GPA and you meet our subject requirements, which essentially are the A through Gs. And if you meet those, you get into Portland State. So it doesn't mean that, again, these requirements are less than some other schools. It doesn't mean that we expect any less from you. We expect the same, but again, it's that access institution, mode to it there. So both Matthew and Don have talked about some of these points here, but visiting the campus, there really is no substitution for that. And again, like I shared with my experience earlier, it was critical because on paper, the University of Oregon was not going to be the school I wanted to go to. But again, having gone there, I absolutely fell in love with it. The analogy that many of my colleagues have given to me over the years is that when you go to buy a pair of jeans, what is the first thing you do? You try it on. It is not a one size fits all. And again, what may be right for your friends, may be right for your family members, is not always going to be the best fit for you. Where are you going to be happiest? We've all done our time in college. We've gone through the process. We want to make sure that you are happy with the institution that you end up at. Now, there are going to be times where students attend Portland State, they attend other institutions, and they say after the first year or so, it's not the right fit, I'm going to transfer somewhere else. That's perfectly fine. But you want to come by and take a look to see what the campus has to offer. Obviously, during the pandemic, here at Portland State, we are not offering any on-campus tours right now. We are in Multnomah County, which is still in phase 1 of reopening. There have been a surge of COVID cases over the past several weeks, so there's a lot of restrictions going on in the state right now. Hopefully, we will be back up and running at some point in the near future. It's tough to say exactly when, though, but we want to make sure that everyone is staying safe. As Don talked about, asking questions. There is power with that information. And I've had students that will say, this is, and again, I apologize for language here, this is a stupid question. First of all, I don't like that word. And also, there are no bad questions. To me, I would say the bad questions are the ones you don't ask. Because it may be something that you're like, it's not really that important. But the answer that we give you will raise one or two other questions. And it may also help other students, if you're in a group setting, to think of questions that they might have but didn't want to ask. And it can be intimidating at times to raise your hand or send an email. But again, we're all just, we're here to help. That's why we're in this industry. We're not here because we're getting paid big bucks. I can promise you that. But we want to be part of your college experience and to be able to assist for you. assist you however we can. What do you want to get out of your college experience? You know, do you want to go to a school where they have, you know, a big, you know, Greek system? Do you want to go to a school where it's huge on sports? Do you want to go to a school that is, you know, is an urban campus or more of a suburban institution? There's not a right fit, you know, a right answer for everybody. So by doing the campus tours, by asking the questions, you know, we're all going to be able to help you out with anything that you might be interested in here. I think both Don and Matthew brought up a lot of the other good points, so I'm going to kind of leave it at that, and I am going to turn it back over to our moderator.
Okay, thank you for all of our panelists. As a junior myself, that was some amazing advice, and I think that's something that all of us will have to consider going forward into college applications. So we're going to start off with our Q&A session. If you have any questions, I would like you guys to pop them into the chat. Please do not direct message anyone. Please just put them as directed to everyone, and we will sort through them and ask questions. We're going to start off with some of the pre-made questions that people entered into our Google Forms. So our very first question is, does being undeclared cause your application to get rejected at colleges?
I can start. For UC, no. Being undeclared does not cause you to be rejected from a UC. In fact, a lot of our campuses do accept students who are undeclared, as well as students who are who have an idea of what kind of field they want to go into. So for UC Santa Cruz, if students go in undeclared, but they know they want to do STEM in the future, they get put into an undeclared cluster, and they will work one-on-one with an advisor to figure out, okay, what's that STEM major that you want to declare when you get to declare your major, which is typically in the middle of your sophomore year, I think at the end of your first quarter, your sophomore year.
Okay, thank you. And then the next question we have is that this is for all the colleges, but how has the college application process at your college specifically been affected by the coronavirus pandemic, specifically for the classes of 2021 and 22, including the requirements for SAT testing and ACT testing?
So I'll start specific to Portland State. We have been a test optional university for years, so nothing has changed because of COVID when it comes to that. If a student meets our GPA and subjects, they get in, they're good to go there. Application numbers have taken a hit. We'd be lying if we said otherwise, because I think for many students, you know, maybe they're choosing to stay closer to home during the pandemic. Their families want to keep them safe, which, you know, makes absolute sense. So I think on our end, it's doing more work to try to encourage students to consider, you know, Portland State, even if it means taking your classes, you know, in a remote setting. You know, with COVID here, we are taking it very seriously. We have a COVID dashboard that we post that's public. We've had 8 COVID cases on campus since May. So we require face coverings on campus, or face masks. There is hand sanitizer stations everywhere, COVID testing, contact tracing, all of that. Last point to what you were saying, with the grades and how things have taken place, we lowered our GPA requirement for WUI to a 3.0 in light of students not being able to get, in many cases, grades for their second semester of last year. Now we are not going to be changing it going forward. We do believe that most schools are providing grades for this current year. But again, we did make some exceptions earlier.
Yeah, happy to jump in. So I would say, so I'll speak on behalf of BU and then try to make this as broad as possible as well. For BU, this is actually our first year being test optional across the board. So we've waived the test requirements for at least for the students who are applying for this year, and we haven't made any determination for futures just yet. So just being completely honest, I don't know for future years just yet. I'm certainly hopeful and one of the folks advocating for at least test optional, if nothing else. So we'll probably have more information about that in the spring. I would say that, and this will play its role in many different ways. Context is going to be more important than ever. As Dave mentioned, we're going to be adjusting the pieces that we look at and how we look at those. So it's going to be important, as we look at transcripts, we understand that there are a lot of high schools where either some version of pass fail, credit, no credit this past semester, or if you did receive grades, it may not be the most reflective of your work in the past because you were going through a national pandemic. So or global pandemic even. So we're going to understand those pieces as we look at the applications as well. So in terms of the baseline question, how is it affecting our applications? We're going to account for that context. And then I don't know if I was supposed to answer the first question as well, but just wanted to plug, undeclared is actually our most popular point of entry at BU, so it is not negatively reviewed for our application review.
Yeah, I echo what my colleagues have shared. So in terms of how our campuses are handling COVID, we are being as safe as possible. Campus housing is very limited at Santa Cruz. And we're doing as much as we can to flatten this curve. In terms of applications, how has COVID affected our applications? I wouldn't say that there has been a significant effect due to COVID. The major changes that have occurred in relation to the pandemic has been in our previous policy of requiring letter grades for A through G courses for spring 2020. So we're not requiring to see grades for spring 2020 for students who are concerned about GPA though, especially if you're a sophomore, or if you are a sophomore or a junior in the right now. We recommend students to try and take community college classes to get that GPA bump if they're concerned. So I highly recommend that. And then for fall of 2020 admitted students, some of the changes, like we adjusted some deadlines, like when transcripts were due, we were flexible with that deadline because we knew some campuses and school districts just weren't going to have their transcripts ready by the July 1st deadline. And we even saw students take a deferral for either a term, so they came in or they're going to be coming in winter of 2021, or they are just going to start in fall of 2021. So those are just some of the changes that we've seen. And then regarding testing, so all UCs are not requiring tests. Tests will not be used for consideration in admission or scholarships. The only thing that tests may be helpful for is if you don't think you're going to meet the A through G requirements. So if you don't think you're going to meet the 4 years of English for whatever reason, or 3 years of math, your SAT scores may be helpful in that. But if you haven't taken them yet, and if you haven't taken the standardized tests yet, I wouldn't worry about it. I would just continue to do what you're doing in your activities and in your academics, and you should be fine as long as you're meeting A through G in other ways, which is a uniquely California thing. So that's why it's more relevant to folks who are coming from out of state, whereas in California, if you're going to a California public school, you're most likely going to be meeting A through G anyway. So yeah.
Okay, and then our next question is there anything such as a generic college essay? If so, what?
I'm happy to start with that one. I think that going a different way from maybe the basis of this question, there can be such thing as a generic essay, but that doesn't mean that any given topic is automatically generic, right? I think, having done this, I've been in admissions for about 8 years, and, the second you spend a couple of days reading applications, you might see similar topics, you might see similar themes, you might see similar ideas, concepts, stories. The biggest piece is, again, making it your own flavor, right? I have read a lot of applications that have talked about not making sports teams, about sports injuries, about concussions, right? So it's just kind of following this theme about sports. And if you write your essay with just the facts and the, the stats and the different things that happened, and you just talk about how much it sucks, that doesn't really tell me much, right? Because we understand that, right? That's kind of inferred, implied. But then when you start to make it your own, you get to start to talk about how you learned from it, how you bounced back, how you were there to support your teammates, what life lessons that taught you, how it's now motivated you to pursue a specific academic field or a specific line of work. Again, those kind of pieces that are more unique to how you handle the situation, how it's affected you personally, that's going to make it unique in itself, right? So it's not going to be generic, even if it's a topic that we've seen before. There's no such thing as a bad topic in terms of an application essay, right? We just want to hear more about how it reflects on your own personality, on your own background, on your own identity, or none of the above, right? Whatever, again, is important for you to share with us. The application essay is a place for us to gain insight as to who you are, right? What makes you kind of uniquely you. So again, I'm not sure if I'm answering the kind of the basis of the question, but there's no bad topic. I would argue, again, I'm kind of speaking, I don't want to put words in my colleagues' mouths. But in terms of how you then kind of make it more specific and more unique to yourself and your background, that's what's most important.
For the UC, so we have our personal insight questions, and pretty much what Matthew has already shared is pretty much the purpose of the personal insight questions. They're for us to get insight about you, who you are, what you're thinking, how you operate. I recommend having, if you have an admissions essay to be writing or the personal insight questions to answer, approach them like interview questions. If someone were to ask you this in real life, what would you say? How would you outline your answer to it? And take that approach when writing your essays. But in terms of a generic college essay, no, because all of our applicants are so very unique.
And I would say for Portland State, while we don't require, essays as part of the general application process, for students who do not meet our requirements on the surface, they are asked to submit answers to 2 specific essay questions. And when I review those, sometimes students will send us their generic college essay, and they're not addressing our questions. I look down on that in the sense of, is the applicant paying attention to the details? And if they're not, then that says to me, really, where is their interest in Portland State? So again, make sure you are addressing what the prompts are at whatever school you are applying to.
Okay, thank you. So one question that came up is that, will GPA be looked at more closely for college admissions now, considering that a lot of schools are making testing optional?
Yeah, well, I would say, obviously different colleges are going to look for different components. Just as a reminder, of course, while we're building communities, while we're looking at all these different pieces, at the end of the day, we are all institutions for higher education. So GPA is always going to be one of the more, if not the most important pieces as we review transcripts specifically. It certainly is going to be looked at, I would say, more critically in terms of the overall kind of performance, looking at how you've selected your classes, how you're challenging yourself. Again, that context of how things have changed maybe this past year and into this year. Those pieces are going to be certainly accounted for. But to get back to the question itself, GPA has been, and kind of more so than just like your overall cumulative GPA, right? We also look at factors like trends, how you perform year to year, looking at each of the individual areas of your academic record. Those pieces all come into play certainly heavily in terms of the application review.
Okay, so I think the next question was that, Should students take SAT subject tests, and will they affect college admissions, especially considering that a lot of the UCs and colleges have canceled SATs, but they have not canceled the subject test requirements?
Yeah, so I can definitely chime in on this one. So for the SAT subject test, this is what I mean in terms of meeting minimum eligibility. So I can't remember what the threshold is for meeting A through G if you aren't going to meet A through G for like the English requirement, for example. But your SAT subject test can help you meet minimum eligibility if you aren't already going to. So if you aren't already going to be completing 4 years of English, 3 years of math, the 2 years of lab sciences, language other than English, whatever, whatever is outlined in the A through G, that's where the SAT subject test could be very beneficial. But typically California students will automatically meet A through G, especially if they are coming from a public school in California, because the public school curriculum is created around A through G requirements for UC. If you're coming from a private school, possibly, but we can talk one-on-one about that so that I can, get more information about the school and, see if the classes you're already taking will meet A through G.
Then switching over a little bit further, will AP test scores be considered extremely important in the upcoming college applications?
So for AP test scores, similar thing. So if, say, a student, this is something that we've seen is, say a student takes AP Lang their junior year and they decide they don't want to take an English class their senior year. If they got a 4 or a 5 on their AP test that junior year, and we receive the score, that will count for that last year meeting A through G. And APs obviously give you college credit too.
Okay, so I think we only have time for about 1 or 2 more questions. So I'm going to switch over a little bit more to school life, but is there any advantage to early application for your school?
Not at Portland State. No, I mean, we're on, I should say we're on a rolling admissions basis, so there are no formal application deadlines. That said, it is still best to apply in the fall if you can.
Yeah, so this again, I'll speak a little bit broadly and then hone it back into BU. So there are different types of applications. So Dave just mentioned one, rolling admissions. Means exactly what he said, no formalized deadlines. And then just to clarify some other terminology, you have everything from regular decision, which is kind of one deadline, and then all of those students are notified around the same timeline. And then you have everything from early decision to early action to restrictive early action. Early decision and restrictive early action are types of applications where you can only choose one school to apply in that regard. Early decision is a binding agreement that states if offered admission to that school that you're applying early decision to, you will enroll at that institution. So it's a big commitment, it's a big choice, but it's also one of the ways that students can express the highest level of interest in a university, basically stating this is my clear-cut number one, I'll enroll if admitted to this school. Restrictive early action is similar in that it is expressing a high level of interest, but it's not a commitment. You don't have to enroll at that institution, but again, you're stating that this is one of my clear-cut, top choices across other schools that also offer similar types of applications. And then early action is one of those types of applications where you do apply earlier, you hear back earlier, generally speaking, and there can be favorability in admission review for that as well. So BU specifically, we offer early decision and regular decision application types. So early decision, again, is that binding agreement, but it is that kind of highest level way to express interest in a school like BU. So that can play a role in the application review itself in terms of, again, how we review those applications. But that's not to say that a student has to apply ED to be considered to a school like BU, right? Most of our students are going to apply through regular decision.
For the UC system, there isn't really any advantage to submitting your application early, except just peace of mind. All of the students will hear in the same time frame in the March or April decision times, and none of the applications are viewed in the order they were received. I don't really know how we get the forms or the applications that were assigned to review, but I just know that we aren't reading them in the order that they were received.
Okay, and then the last question is, how can students make their application stand out, especially at the current situation?
The first thing that comes to mind is not focused on COVID. We know that this is something that affected the entire world. And at the end of the day, COVID isn't the biggest part of your life. You have been alive for much longer than COVID has been around. And while, yes, there may have been some significant impacts, I'm not trying to diminish any impacts. At the end of the day, COVID and who you are during COVID may not be necessarily who you are outside of COVID. So, talking about maybe the things that you finally pursued because now you had the time to pursue. There are some PIQs that I've read where the student finally, had a lot of downtime from their activities because they couldn't do their sports, and they, got back into poetry, and they self-published a book in their time of COVID. So, talk more about what you did in the time of COVID rather than how it affected you, I think is something that is something I would recommend to stand out.
Some of the pieces that we, I think each mentioned before, first off, don't cater to what you think we want to see. We, again, just want you to be yourself throughout the application process. Don't compare yourself to others, right? Don't compare yourself to, what you think others are presenting in their applications. In turn, that includes everything from their transcripts to their writing samples, right? You, again, are very much yourself, and that's what we want to see throughout the application. We want to hear more about you. And to that effect, don't downplay things that you've had going on in your life, right? Both those contextual pieces, but also understand that anything that you're spending your time on is likely what we want to hear about. It's, obviously we love to hear about the extracurricular things that you're doing, clubs and organizations, but your involvement goes so much past that, right? It includes your jobs, it includes your community service hours, it includes your family responsibilities, it includes things that you happen in your home life. Those are all important pieces as we consider applications, because it really it shows us how you've developed your character, how you spend your time management. It shows us more about your, what's important to you. So those are all going to be important pieces throughout the application. So again, don't compare yourself to others, and really kind of shine as much of yourself, your experiences through when presenting the applications.
Okay, so I think that's all we're going to do for the Q&A session. So once again, thank you very much for everyone who's attending, and thank you to our amazing panelists. They have provided some amazing information. I suggest all of you guys check out their school websites and their emails if you want to contact them for more information and further questions. But we are going to wrap it up right about now. Just one last reminder, FAYE has main branch applications, which we only open up once in the entire school year. That is going to be due tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. The link is in the chat, and I can drop it again. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, and feel free to email us if you have any further questions. And we have another part 2 of this event coming up next week, where we're going to be having alumni from UC Berkeley, Stanford, and other colleges come and speak about their experiences, COVID's impact on their experiences, and how to pursue the college application process. So thank you for attending, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.